This is the voice of the New York Football Giants, Bob Papa, and you are listening to the best throughout Europe, the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast.
Welcome back, Giants fans, to the latest edition of the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast. As always, we're proudly in association with Andy's Man Club. Lads, remember, it is okay to talk, and tonight we are 100% British, and as always, we are still 100% Giants. And the 2025 season is now officially over. That means the off-season is now in session. Scout and Combine, Pro Days, Free Agency, Draft, all coming away over the next couple of months. And with the Giants coaching staff taking shape pretty quickly, it gives us plenty of food for thought and lots to look forward to over the coming few months as well. So I'm joined by Shane, Aaron, and fresh off his trip to the Bay Area for Super Bowl 60. A slightly jet-lagged Craig is back in the building. Boys, how are we doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Obviously, I was a bit tired from staying up for the Super Bowl, but obviously I'm sure nothing compared to Craig's tiredness from jetting halfway around across the world and whining and dining certain celebrities, I'm sure, and tapping up to get them on the pod on future episodes. Yeah, that's right. It must be an hard life for some, hadn't it?
And get the violins out, come on.
Yeah, it's nice to be back. It's been a week. It's not even been a week. It's 10 days. But yeah, we'll get into that a bit later. There's a lot, obviously, of different things I'll try and go through. I'll try and not take up way too much time either. But yeah, there's plenty to talk about tonight.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's the hardest part about the Super Bowl was staying awake for the first three quarters, I think, in the UK, right? It was a bit of a snooze fest, and then 30 points in the final quarter, but the result was never really in doubt. But as Giants fans, we've seen a few blown leads this season. So if anyone was optimistic of a comeback, it was probably our fan base watching it, going, "Well, we've seen the team blow this sort of lead." So in the books, obviously on the thumbnail for this episode was Leo and Love, the two former Giants that fled the nest. Found a new nest on the West Coast and have now got a shiny new Super Bowl ring.
Absolutely, they have, and it was well deserved, I think. And I mean, obviously, Drew Lock was on the team as well, and he gets a ring too. But I think for Leo and for J-Love, I think it's well deserved because they've played extremely well in Seattle, and fair play to them. And also the British defensive coordinator as well. First British coach to get a ring, I believe. So there we go. It's a good one all round for us, really. Two ex-players have a ring, and yeah, it wasn't the best game, but it wasn't the worst game either. I think when was it, a few years ago we had the 10-3 Rams Patriots game, and that was awful, but we won't go too much into that. But yeah, it's we've not got a huge amount of news to bring, which I'll get onto in a second. But if you are watching live on YouTube, X, or Facebook, get involved in the comments, as some of you are already. Send us your questions as well if you have any questions, or if you have any questions for Craig relating to his trip over to the Bay Area, then get them in the comments. And don't forget to like the episode, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done already. And for audio listeners, how many stars are they giving us, Aaron? They're giving us a 5-star review on their podcast platform of choice. As usual, we are going to start off with the news. And there's not really a huge amount of news apart from, as it says on the screen, hiring more coaches. The Giants have hired, they've completed their offensive coaching hires today. Yeah. They added ex-Titans head coach Brian Callahan as the new quarterbacks coach and passing game coordinator. He interviewed for the offensive coordinator role, which was obviously given to Matt Nagy, and he now adds even more experience to that offensive staff. And having an ex-head coach as your quarterbacks coach isn't a bad thing, really. Looking at our offensive staff in full, obviously Matt Nagy as the offensive coordinator, ex-Bears head coach, and ex-Chiefs OC as well. Greg Roman, a senior offensive assistant, and he's been offensive coordinator for 4 teams across his career so far in the league: 49ers, Bills, Ravens, and Chargers. Brian Callahan, like I said, ex-Titans head coach and Bengals offensive coordinator. Willie Taggart. Craig, you might remember Willie Taggart at FSU, if you remember back that far. Was head coach in college for multiple teams, including Craig's FSU, and his ex-Ravens assistant head coach and running backs coach as well. Chad Hall, the wide receivers coach, promoted from assistant QBs and ex-wide receiver coach in Buffalo and Jacksonville. Tim Kelly, he's the only one that's stuck around, ex-Titans and ex-Texans and Titans offensive coordinators as a wide receivers coach, as a Titan coach, sorry. And Mike Bloomgren was announced as our offensive line coach. Was on the Browns last year in the same position, and was with Stanford as the offensive coordinator a few years back as well. Now, obviously, the Giants hired Callahan as their quarterbacks coach, so Jackson Dart's going to be surrounded by 3 quarterback minds who've worked with the likes of Peyton Manning, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, Matt Stafford, Alex Smith. The list goes on and on and on. Shane, are you impressed with the offensive staff so far?
As much as you can be. I think at the same time, you want to get excited. You just need to keep it in check a little bit as well. And let's see what happens when they get on the field, and let's see what development and improvements that we also see. I mean, you guys have been in a better position to answer this than me. I mean, like, you look at what the staff in full is. I mean, what's the one word that just rings through every department, every area? Experience. Harbour's kind of brought in guys that who've been there and done it and done different roles and know the league inside and out. And I think a lot of times that in these days you kind of get first time head coaches who may bring in 1 or 2 experienced guys, but again take guys who haven't done those roles before. It's quite clear that John Harbaugh wants to bring in that experience, to bring in guys that know the league inside and out, that have got good experience and also got bad experience, because at the end of the day, that bad experience is how you kind of grow and develop and learn from them. So I think, you can kind of be as excited as you can possibly be, but at the same time, I feel like we've been in this situation with the Giants a lot in the last kind of 5 or 6 years, where we've been exciting and then the seasons come round and then you've had a massive reality check. So I also do think it's important just to keep it in check just a little bit.
Yeah, that's not a bad shout. Craig, do you think there's a bit too much experience on this offensive coaching team?
No. I love it. I love the hires. Obviously, this is the first time that I've really been able to kind of get my teeth into what we've been doing. And I just think it's the perfect way to do things. You look at what we've had in the past, where we've had relatively inexperienced people in the building, and maybe coaches who have maybe not had a head coaching opportunity. Obviously we've had Mike Kafka, we've had Shea Turney, who was also the QB coach with Dable, and it's kind of been a lot of I guess the best way to put it is maybe pally, like a lot of the kind of coaches that people know and that people have worked with. And maybe the biggest problem that you get out of something like that is that, the familiarity of it all just breeds a little bit of, just a not as much focus as maybe you would hope. And everyone kind of mills around the place, and it doesn't, maybe they don't push each other.
Yeah, maybe breeds a little bit of complacency as well.
That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. I want my quarterback coach to kind of challenge my offensive coordinator. I want my wide receivers coach to challenge my offensive coordinator, and I want my offensive coordinator to challenge my head coach. And maybe what we've had is a hierarchy that doesn't allow for those conversations, or does allow for those conversations, but because it was Brian Daboll, they were scared of what he was going to do. And I think what John Harbaugh's done in the terms of, he's brought in Matt Nagy as the offensive coordinator, which I admit at the time I was very underwhelmed with. And then later that day, obviously the little preview for the Super Bowl thing, but later that day I got to speak to Mike Florio about that. And what Florio was saying kind of turned my opinion a little bit, in the terms of, he was, he said that there was a reason that it happened. It made sense because of the journey that Harbaugh went on with Andy Reid, and what obviously Nagy's now done. It kind of ties that kind of coaching tree together a little bit.
Yeah.
But then, like you say, you look at the fact that Brian Callahan's now coming as an offensive as the QB's coach, and you're getting another person with head coaching experience who's dealt with multiple different quarterbacks, as you've rightly said, who's now going to deal with a quarterback who has a skill set that probably kind of overlaps with a few of those. You could maybe say he has a little bit of the skill set that Lamar Jackson has, maybe a little bit of the skill set that someone like Alex Smith has as well. So it'd be interesting to see how that meshes.
Yeah, it's I think like you, I think the hiring of Matt Nagy was a bit sort of out of nowhere, and was like, okay, let's sort of look at him as a whole. And his time in Chicago was very underwhelming. But look at the Chicago team that he was coaching at the time. The whole team was underwhelming. So not necessarily a knock on him. I think, and then there was obviously a few raised eyebrows when Carm Brasillo was let go, because we were all sort of on the same page of, let's keep him around, because the offensive line had improved under him massively. We've now replaced him with Mike Bloomgren. Aaron, what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, so I think maybe we were a victim of the Browns hiring Todd Monken and the Carm Brasillo stakes, right? Because Todd Monken was a big fan of his offensive lineman guy in Cleveland, and obviously they kind of were a package deal. But I think, and at that point, obviously, they've let Carm go in. Look, this is probably what we're going to do. The whole hire in Tennessee moved on. I know Harbaugh's dad had even said, look, Carm Brasillo, I've watched the tape. You should keep this guy around. This line's really good. So it's hard to judge. Mike Bloomgren obviously has a fairly decent resume. He was at Stanford with Andrew Luck and was the guy that kind of helped put Christian McCaffrey on the map with the kind of scheme there. He had a couple of other runners go for a lot. Obviously, Stanford, not a massive school, was punching above its weight for a number of years in the Pac-12 when that was still a thing. And I think you can look at his Browns record from last year and say, well, Browns had a offensive line. They dealt with injuries from day one all season. The Browns, we know what it's like when you can't put five guys together, and the guys that you brought in to do it. He did manage to get a Pro Bowl quarterback out of that offensive line, though. So a Pro Bowl quarterback who's known to cling on to the ball too long and everything else. So the offensive line must have been doing something right?
Criminal that you got that.
Yeah, but a bit of tongue in cheek there. But I think just more on the staff as a whole, right? So it's clear you don't bring in guys of this ex-head coach experience without the wallet being open, and so clearly the amount of high-level assistants, to bring Greg Roman in as a senior offensive assistant, so without a coordinator title attached to it. We've got ex-head coaches coming in as coordinators. We've got ex-coordinators coming in as assistants. So clearly one of the attractiveness is the chance to rebuild their career and move on to other places. But also, these are guys that are going to be assistants. Are going to be being paid like coordinators as well. So I think it's good. I think if we're trying to change the culture, one of the things that we've said is we've not seen players progress and develop. So I'm excited to see what Bo, John Michael Schmitz on the offensive line can do. What the likes of Nubin can do in the secondary. These guys should be able to develop with this level of high level coaching staff that we have. And then obviously that will lead on to some of the players that may come in to help build the culture. We've said in the last couple of weeks, there's guys that are going to come in that have worked in these schemes that are going to come in. So will we see a Tevin Jenkins from the Browns, who was a former first round pick, being moved to guard as a rebuild project? Will we see like someone in? We'll see like a Joel Bitonio come in as a 1 year kind of fix it while we're still trying to go those kind of things. So, it's interesting that we've went from having a former Chiefs offensive coordinator and a former Titans defensive coordinator and replaced them with a former Chiefs offensive coordinator from the Chiefs and an offensive coordinator from the Titans. But and then we've added some players and some coaches from the Browns as well, given that they were such a really strong franchise. So. A bit of a funny one there, but I don't think we're. I do think the level of coaching has increased. Shane Bowen as the old DC, he couldn't have coached his way out of a cardboard box, as far as I'm concerned. And I don't have that same fear with our new set of staff.
No, exactly that, and as it says on the screen there as well, Frank Bush joins as our linebackers coach. Previously worked under Denard Wilson in Tennessee, last year and the last 2 seasons. And he's coached in the NFL for 25 years. So again, a very, very experienced coach there. And looking back at last season, Cedric Gray was one of the best linebackers in the league last season, and he's obviously had a helping hand in him getting to the heights he did. So again, another fantastically experienced coach coming in, and God help us, we need help at linebacker, and so I'm really sort of happy with him coming in as our LB coach. That's for sure. I think he'll add. He'll just add some discipline to that room that maybe wasn't there before in terms of wrapping up the tackles and just playing hard football. Because Cedric Gray looked outstanding last year, and so let's hope we can make a top 5 linebacker out of one of our guys this year. That'd be pretty good. All right, that'll be the news, because there's not much else unless you want to talk mock drafts, which we're going to talk mock drafts in a bit. But it's time for story time with Craig. As I'm calling it.
Are we starting there before we talk about the Super Bowl?
No, we'll talk about the Super Bowl first off, because obviously the curtain came down on the 2025 season. Seattle Seahawks won a pretty resounding victory in the end, 29-13 over the Patriots. Their defense just dominated from start to finish. And like I said, 2 ex-Giants, Leo Williams and Julian Love on that defense, fully deserved that ring. And overall, the game wasn't great, but it was the fourth quarter was definitely quite exciting when the Patriots start to come back into it. But I think that Seahawks D was just absolutely outstanding. Did you boys stay up and watch it?
Yeah, I stayed up, watched the whole thing. I actually enjoyed the game. I watched it at home, so it wasn't out or anything like that. I actually enjoyed the game. It was although it wasn't the best game of football I've ever seen, it was a sort of a game where you could see there was potential there, and if they could solve the issues on offense on the pass protection, you could see the Patriots getting into that game. Unfortunately for the Patriots and Will Campbell, his little T-Rex arms, he couldn't solve it. Now there's been a lot of talk this week, in Jermaine's Illuminors even chipped in saying it's not just about arms, it's alignment and how he's rebuilt his stance when he comes to the Giants and this, that, and the other. And some of that is certainly true. But the Patriots pass protection scheme was completely found out. And if you cannot, the only thing that they could do was complete the hot routes, which is what the Seahawks defense wanted them to do, because every time they completed a pass, there was somebody there in the guy's face to make a tackle. And, Seattle didn't do a phenomenal amount, but the one thing that they got going was that outside zone and Ken Walker. And I think I called it in the second quarter that he was going to be the MVP. It was a play that he was getting open and a lot, and that was the major difference in the game. Obviously, a solid kicker helps as well.
The major difference in the game was the kicker. It was absolutely criminal that Jason Myers did not get MVP in that game.
Yeah,
just
I have to agree. I do have to agree. It was my kind of like big takeaway at the end of the game as we were walking back towards the coaches. We were kind of having a conversation between the five of us that were actually at the game in some capacity. And I turned around and I said, this was the perfect time for them to have an MVP from special teams, because Jason Myers had a phenomenal game, obviously scored more points than anyone has ever scored.
17 points.
Yeah, unbelievable. But also Dixon, the punter.
The punter. Unreal.
The second one that bounced towards the 1 yard line was good. The coffin corner kick that he had in the first half, I think it was
bounced out the 1 yard
outstanding.
line. Yeah,
just absolutely phenomenal. And his punts were on point every single time. You know, even when they were backed up and there was a deep punt, the way that he was able to get enough hang time on the ball to allow the gunners to get down there, like either one of those two, I personally could have quite easily got MVP. It just shows that from a public perspective, everyone's always going to go for an offensive or defensive player. I was also slightly hopeful that maybe Julian Love would have got it with his interception. You know, I don't know if anyone's seen the conversation that Julian Love had, where he was saying he basically had checked Drake May's cadence, and he was like, every time they were going for a shot, rather than going onto his back foot and throwing straight away, there was always the delay. So he knew that was coming. So when he missed one earlier on in the game, he knew that he'd get another opportunity to do it, and obviously he did get that interception.
Nice.
So
nice. Yeah, I just think...
a couple of shout outs for me. I thought Deontay Banks, two draft classmates in Witherspoon and Gonzalez, played absolutely phenomenal. I thought the two breakups that Gonzalez made were absolutely amazing.
Well,
Look, a league goalkeeper would have been proud of them.
If the Patriots would have won, he had to be MVP.
Yeah, 100%.
Had to be.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think for me as well, it also showed why, for me personally, Drake May was not MVP this year.
Yeah,
that's exactly why Drake. If that's Matt Stafford, he makes them throws. He claws the team back into it. Drake May doesn't that take nothing away from Drake May. Drake May had a really, really great second season in the league, and carried the team to the Super Bowl effectively. But I do think a couple of the plays that he made, he missed Hooper wide open earlier in the interception drive, and that would have been a massive gain. He missed him. It was an easy throw to make. And I don't know what it's been with the interception, but for me personally, that's why Drake May was not your MVP of the NFL this year.
Yeah, I saw. I think he was 23 votes, wasn't he? And Stafford was 24, and there was one for Herbert. And I saw someone that there were 24 Drake May MVP votes that prevented prevented Herbert from winning. That they'd all voted for Herbert like they should have. Then Herbert would have been the MVP. But maybe he was seeing ghosts like the other quarterback did once time in MetLife.
It's funny. Did you see Colin Coward's reasoning for why Matthew Stafford has got the MVP?
No,
because he's got kids. Not because of his play, nothing else. It's because he's got kids, apparently.
Oh,
make it make sense.
Yeah, right. Make that make sense. But yeah, I think if through the first three quarters, Jason Myers was the MVP. Kenny Williams makes a few big runs in the fourth quarter. Admittedly, he looked pretty good, and the Patriots defense didn't have an answer to it. But it just would have been nice, I think, and would have been obviously the first time ever a kicker winning the MVP. If he doesn't kick those 17 points, the Seahawks don't win. It's as simple as that. As simple as obviously they need to get in field position for it, whatever. But if he doesn't kick those 17 points, the Seahawks do not win that game. So you can't tell me he wasn't the most valuable player in that game.
Maybe we're just biased because that's what kickers should be automatic from the range of kickers kicking he didn't hit a 60-yarder to win the game until he didn't hit from 60 yards. He was hitting 30, 35, 37, 38. And as Giants fans, we know that's tough. For the rest of the league, that's not a challenge.
Yeah. I mean, that comment there from the Kent man, Denver with Knicks would have been a better game. I think I absolutely agree with that. I think I mentioned it on Sunday night. So having the Broncos Seahawks, that would have been a really, really good game. Like that would have been another massive defensive battle. And yeah, if obviously with Bo Nix being fit and healthy, it would have been a very interesting game. But like Shane said, that you can't knock Drake May's season. He had a great season. It just didn't happen for him on Sunday, and he'll learn from it. And like Mike Vrabel said, it's not, you can't pin it all on one guy because that's not fair. He's had a great season, and it just didn't happen on Sunday. Go on, Shane, what you gonna say?
I was going to say, look for me, I personally feel the best team won the Super Bowl this year. But there was no arguments for me. I'm just curious because obviously my knowledge isn't as extensive as your guys. Like, when's the last time that actually happened? Like the best team, not about the team with the best record necessarily, but the team that balled out week in, week out, actually went on and did win the Super Bowl. Because obviously, Patriots, the year the Giants beat them, I don't know if it was the first or second time, so I wasn't a fan then. Obviously, they were 17 games unbeaten at that point and choked in the big one. Obviously, if they would have won it, that would have been fully deserved. I'm just wondering when's the last time that a team that played that well all season won it.
It's a good question. It's a very
probably
good question.
Looking at maybe one of the Chiefs' victories. I immediately, and I might be wrong here, but I immediately thought about the Broncos when they beat the Panthers.
Yeah,
what, 10 years ago.
Yeah, it was 10 years ago because that was in the stadium.
Yeah, and they had obviously Peyton Manning at quarterback, and he rode off into the sunset.
Yeah,
off the back of the win.
But that sort of won with Peyton Manning almost as an offensive coordinator rather than as a quarterback and a dominant defense. In a similar manner, it was a defense that was so dominant. I think Seattle even went under the radar this season as well. Maybe it's the whole West Coast thing and being in the late window and everything else. But
I think they did as well. Personally, I think that all eyes see, especially in the NFC, I think all eyes seem to be not really on Seattle. I think a lot of eyes because obviously
it's on the Rams.
LA, exactly, bigger market.
Yeah,
and yeah. The last time the best team won the Super Bowl.
I mean, I'll hold my hands up. When I did my preseason predictions for the Irish NFL show, we were predicting who would make it to the playoffs. I didn't even have the Seahawks near it.
Well, you got to think they were going for a rebuild, right? And this is relevant probably to the Giants, right? They're going for a rebuild. They obviously sacked off Geno Smith. They went for the big splash in free agency on the quarterback and brought in Sam Darnold, and it was kind of this is just year one of a rebuild, and but actually, if you look at their hits that they've had in the first 3 rounds of the draft over the last 3 or 4 years, and the players that have come in there, they've managed to do a really fast rebuild, but they haven't missed. The GM hasn't missed, and he was 2-3 years ago was going to be fired, right? And held on. He hasn't missed it in the last 3 years in the picks that really matter.
No, his draft picks were good. His trades were good. His ability to move off players, the ability to turn around and say Pete Carroll wasn't working anymore and change the head coach. Like, he made a lot of big decisions and got most of them, if not all of them, right.
Yeah, that's why I'm always surprised that you see teams take personnel from successful teams. So in recent years, you've seen people who've come from the Chiefs, from the Ravens, from the Bills. But the Seahawks are a fairly consistent team. Like for me, in all honesty, 10 plus years of following, I still remember the first proper Super Bowl I watched was the Seahawks against Broncos. And ever since then, Seattle, they're there or thereabouts. Yeah, they have one bad season, but you talk when that was 2012 maybe. So you're talking 14 years ago. They've probably had 4 or 5 bad seasons, and I've always been surprised that Seattle are a team that no one ever really seems to nick from. They draft so well; they always have done. You go back to drafting, Russell Wilson back in the day. You look at the players they have drafted since the early 2010s, and I'm always amazed that teams don't cherry pick from Seattle, and I don't know why it is.
Yeah, I think was it Seahawks Broncos on it? They absolutely destroyed it. That was at MetLife, wasn't it? I think it was 2014,
2014 maybe. Yeah.
And they obviously
play was it? I think.
Yeah, the safety on the first play because the snap went over hit him on his head.
Yeah.
And then they made back. And they made back-to-back Super Bowls then as well, because obviously they went on the next year and they lost the Patriots on the goal line. Yeah. So obviously it's nice revenge for them this year. But yeah, Seattle are kind of there or there, always there or thereabouts, always sort of in the playoff mix. So, it's all round. Obviously, like you said, the best team won, and probably the league's best team won as well. Obviously, the number one seed in the NFC, and they took the trophy home. And Mike McDonald, 38 years old, third youngest coach to win it all, behind Sean McVay and somebody else. I can't think of the name. Why can I not think of the name? It'll come to me. So full credit to Seattle because they deserved it at the end of the day. Is it story time with Craig?
We can do story time with Craig. Yeah.
Let's sit back, relax, and enjoy. Let's listen to some Super Bowl tidbits from our producer. So, how was it, man?
It was incredible, and there's not a lot I can say to describe how it was, because it really was amazing, and it kind of comes from a few different angles of what happened with Radio Row and some of the evenings, and even just going out with the Irish NFL show lads afterwards was just great. We had such a good time. And what
shout out to all the boys as well, because some fantastic content over the course of the week. We absolutely smashed it. All of them did, and yourself, Craig, as well.
Yeah, no, thanks. We did across we did 5 days at Radio Row, but only really 4 of them full on, and then the Monday is a little kind of a bit of a quieter one because people are still setting up. But I think we ended up doing something like 7 live shows and 22 interviews across those days. Like there were times where we were just like because I would produce a lot of the shows, we would finish an interview and we would just literally have them stand up, take a quick picture for a thumbnail. They would disappear. I would set up a studio for the next one. That person would sit down, would hit record, and we'd go. Like that is sometimes just how sort of bang, bang, bang it was. I'll start off though with Wednesday. Yeah, Monday morning. So Monday morning I went to the handover press conference between the sort of 2 host committees, because obviously you've now got San Francisco passing over to LA. But after that, they had Mike McDonald and they had Kenneth Walker there with the Lombardi and the MVP trophy, just doing a very quick kind of like media thing at the Moscone Center, which is where Radio Row was essentially. So we went up into the press conference room. Mike McDonald was asked a question about how a lot of teams would now kind of look at their idea of a defense and the blueprint, and there'll be a lot of people coming for him. And he turned around and said, we know we've got the biggest target on our back, but we're here and we're ready to do it. And I thought that was really interesting. I also thought it was really interesting that Kenneth Walker was the first running back to be MVP since 1996, which was Terrell Davis for the Broncos. Hilariously, I watched the Elway documentary on the flight out, which obviously had Terrell Davis on there and the story. If you haven't watched that Elway documentary, I do recommend it. It's actually really, really good. I didn't know a lot about, his career and his lead up. So that's the shout out there. I don't even know where to start. It's kind of difficult. So Radio Row, just for context sake, is literally just kind of like an expo. So on the outside, it's a big square. On the outside are all the big names. So you had sponsors like Bounty who were there. You had PFT Live with Florio and Sims. You had Pat McAfee. He was around the outside. Bleacher Report had like some big arcade set up, which I didn't even realize Bleacher Report did shows from Radio Row. We had CBS just opposite us. We had Sirius XFM in the corner. Good Morning Football and the NFL guys were just literally over our shoulder. So like the Tuesday, which was the day where everything really kicked off, I was sat getting ready to produce and I looked over, and on Good Morning Football was Jamie Erdl, Carl Brandt, Manti Te'o, Seth Rollins, just all sitting there doing their show. And I'm kind of in the background, just like, hello. Just ridiculous. I actually got to meet Seth Rollins there, and he was all right. He was very busy and walking around. So, and that's kind of the way that Radio Row is, in a way, is that you kind of get desensitized after a while because of who's walking around. You know, I was sat there and over on the People set, which was just in front of Sirius XFM, which was literally just to my right. At one point, they had Pat Surtain and Nick Benito there because they were doing some stuff for Bounty, and they're just kind of chatting away there, and you just kind of look over and you go, "Oh, okay." And you know, there are people walking around. We had ESPN El Paso on the table directly next to us, and on the Tuesday I was working away doing some editing, and I looked up and Rampage Jackson, the former UFC champion, was just sat there doing an interview with them, and I was just like, what is this life like? It's ridiculous, but like, yeah, it's proper pinch me stuff. There were quite a few people that I did get to meet and got to have conversations with. Jerry Rice was probably the funniest of all of them because I was sat there alone. We didn't have a show on at that time. And Jerry Rice went to speak to the people to our right. And I'm not sure who it was, but they were kind of a big deal. I think it might have even been TalkSport, you know, because TalkSport were right in the corner. And I saw him and I got out of my chair so quickly that I punted a Gatorade bottle. And it could have gone anywhere, but luckily it hit the pillar just by us. And I walked over to him and I just said, "Hi Jerry, how are you?" Like shook his hand and stuff. And his kind of like PA person was like, "Oh, would you like a picture?" I was like, "Yeah, if that's okay." And then I realized I had my media pass on, and you're not allowed to have pictures with your media pass on because you can't put them on social media because obviously the pass has details and stuff on it. And I went, "Oh fuck, hold on, let me take my pass off." And Jerry Rice just started laughing because I was just effing and jeffing, basically being a typical Brit. And the other lads from the Irish NFL show then turned up, and we ended up getting a load of pictures with him. So that was good. I got to have a quick chat and a picture with Demario Davis from the Saints, and obviously Cam Jordan from the Saints, which were both really nice guys. And Anna,
I bet Anna hated you.
Anna loved it because she was loving the fact that I got to meet Cam. Like Cam's one of her favourites.
Yeah,
and you kind of just, yeah, you just have to kind of be ballsy enough to do it and just to go up to these people. Like I was lucky enough to meet Annie Agar one of the days, and I said to her, hopefully she doesn't have to take the piss out of the Giants as much next season. And she went, I can only do what, how you perform. I have to fair game it. But she was, she was awesome. There's so much. I have a couple of funny stories. One of them was on the night after the Super Bowl. So we went into a place called the Chieftain, which was like a little Irish pub over there. And while I was in there, I spotted, I don't know if anyone's ever seen, there's a YouTube pair.
Get out, Holty. Get out. Mid my arse.
There's a YouTube pair that do sports gossip. And it's basically he explains to his wife about sports, but in a kind of gossipy kind of way. And I saw them there, and by this point I'd had a few drinks, so I don't tend to care. So I just walked up to him and sort of had a chat with him. And we're talking. He came over to the table, and he's got Irish heritage, so we were having a really good conversation. And then I can never remember his surname, but the guy who plays Kevin in The American Office, Brian something, I can never remember his surname. He walks into the bar. So he walks into the bar, and we're all like, what the hell? And the guy, Jack, who we're talking to, is like, oh, yeah, he's with us. So he was like, I'll go and speak to him. Like, you're pretty outgoing. So I went over and spoke to him, and he came over, and we got to get a picture with him and got to have a chat. And he's a Packers fan. So that was pretty funny. I was
Brian Baumgartner.
That's it, Brian Baumgartner. Yeah, he really, really nice guy. We had Cam Hayward walked into our hotel bar just randomly one afternoon, just sitting there having a drink while we were watching a basketball game. The Knicks actually was watching the Knicks, and Cam Hayward just walked in to our hotel, just went over, got a table, just ridiculous. The most ridiculous thing though was the Irish consulate thing that I did. So we got to interview an Irish minister while we were there, and got invited to the consulate's house in San Francisco, and we're kind of, I'm feeling very out of place there. It's not my normal cup of tea hanging out with politicians, and not really anything I really know much about. But then Nancy Pelosi walks in and does a speech, and it's just a bit surreal when you're being introduced to somebody who is quite high up in the American politics landscape, and then you just walk outside. But it was phenomenal. I don't know if anyone's got any questions or wants to know anything more. I mean, if you have, put them in the chat, and I'll be willing to try and answer them.
So I know you've got to have a chat with Pat Leonard and
yes.
Any news on coaching hires, free agency, anything like that? Anything about the new building organisation?
No, not really. A lot of the information that we got out of Pat was on the interview, which I obviously was involved with. So if you haven't seen that, do go over to the Irish NFL Show page. There is an interview from a few days ago with Pat Leonard on there, and it is worth listening to. I asked him two questions which I thought were things that were playing on my mind. So one was about Jackson Dart and the perception around him of the concussions and stuff like that, and Pat kind of turned around and said, actually, it was the Giants that kind of almost leaked it themselves to try and rein it in a little bit. So that was interesting. I asked him about Brasillo, and I asked him about Jermaine Illuminor. If I'm being brutally honest, I think we should temper our expectations that Jermaine Illuminor will not be with the Giants next season. Pat said that for what he is looking to be paid is probably more than what we are willing to offer, and also the fact that John Harbaugh has previously let Jermaine Illuminor walk from the building when he was a Raven. I think that kind of sets a precedence there. There was a funny moment where Pat Leonard said that he likes Marcus Bowe, but does wish that he would spend some more time in the catering section, maybe put a few pounds on. He's a little bit light at the moment, so maybe that's one there.
I'm sure that can happen pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. It might also, if you haven't already, go to the shorts section of their YouTube page and look for that conversation I had with Mike Florio at the NBC Media Availability. I did also speak to Jason Garrett. I don't know if that video has gone up at all, mainly because of the awkward angle where it looks like I am towering above him because he was sat down on a chair and we were all huddled around him. It's not a flattering not a flattering angle for Mr. Garrett. And I did have to bite my tongue and not ask him any Giants-related questions because I'm sure it wouldn't have gone down well because it wasn't exactly the best tenure that he'd had there.
No.
But Giants, Giants players were few and far between. Cam and Jackson Dart were both there, but surrounded all the time, and they were with bounties, so they were just jumping. Bobby Okereke was there, obviously because of the Walter Payton Man of the Year, but he really wasn't available. Jameis Winston I saw there, but again, just had a massive entourage around him. Eli turned up on the Friday, sort of snuck in as everyone else was kind of de-rigging everything. So, and he went straight to the people set and then just disappeared straight away. So there was no chance with him. But the Giants weren't really that seen, I guess, and maybe that's indicative of what's going on. There were a lot of other players who were around. It just didn't. You didn't see a lot of that. I said to you boys off air, I had a Bad Bunny story as well. So
I was just about to say, where's the Bad Bunny story you said about?
So the Bad Bunny story is that we had access on the day to walk around the perimeter of the stadium. So I could walk around the perimeter of it and I could hear stuff from outside. And at one point we had to walk past the stadium to get to the interview tent that they had set up for after the game. And while we were walking there, we had the mariachi band type, the guys in the barbershop hats with the guitars walk past us. And then we also had the woman who had carried the Puerto Rican flag go past us as well. So that was funny. And then when we got back to the media center, which is, I didn't have press box access. I had access to the media center, which was a tent outside the stadium with some screens in it. And when I got back there, this woman walked past with a load of grass. And I was like, what the hell? And she was like, oh, we saw them coming back and we asked them if we could have some and they gave it to us. So this woman was like bagging up some of the grass that was used in the show essentially. But it was weird because I didn't get to see a lot of the stuff that happened in stadium because obviously I was watching on the screen. So I didn't realize that when they came out that there were people inside the grass. So obviously I've seen the subsequent videos online and stuff like that. But yeah, it was crazy. And the atmosphere just sounded phenomenal in there. I was saying when we went to the interviews section was when the pick six happened and just the roar of the crowd was insane. And then obviously you could see from outside the fireworks and just how loud all that was. And
behind the scenes, is it manic behind the scenes at full time as it looks like on the field? Because obviously you get the final whistle on the field and it's just fucking bedlam on the field. Yeah.
So it's weird because I had to leave the media center, like I said, to go to that interview room. So I actually ended up watching from the pick six until the end of the game in there. And then so I didn't really get to experience a lot of what was going on outside. I saw a lot of fans leaving, a lot of Patriots fans leaving, and it did still feel busy outside the stadium. But the big thing was you got into this media center, and I was, like I said, I was in there from the pick six. So I was in there quite early, I would say, waiting. And there was quite a lot of people who were, so this was quite funny. They all set up their cameras around podium one. So they basically had this tent that was cut into two sections, and they had podiums, and they had the Patriots, and then they had the Seahawks. And around podium one at the Seahawks was just all the big TV cameras and all of that, expecting obviously Sam Darnold or Mike McDonald to come in there. And we probably had to wait another 30, 40 minutes after the final whistle for any player to come in. And I think the first player went to podium one and they announced it and they said, Ernest Jones is going to be on podium one. And obviously everyone, you could just feel like the air kind of come out of the room a little bit, that they all had to pick up their camera kit and wait until Sam Darnold was announced. So Ernest Jones was announced first to podium one. Julian Love was announced second to podium 2. Sam Darnold was then announced to podium 3, and everyone kind of went there. Podium 4 was is it Adan, the British coach?
Aidan Durd, yeah.
Aidan Durd. So he was podium 4, and then podium 5 was Leonard Williams, which is where I went because I wanted to. I actually had a really interesting part of the opening night live where I spent a lot of time kind of you would kind of go podium to podium, and then there were lots of players just walking around and you could interview them. And I spent a lot of time at Leonard Williams's podium trying to ask a question, which I never got to. But there was quite a funny bit where Derek Hall walked up to Leonard Williams's podium and he asked a question to Williams about who the biggest animal on the field was, but the biggest teddy bear out of it, knowing full well that it was Leonard Williams who it is, and that was good. But yeah, I didn't get to ask any questions at the post match just because it was absolute carnage, as you can imagine. But at opening night live, I got to speak to CJ Dupree, the tight end for the Patriots. I got to speak to Mike Onwenu, I think it is, the offensive lineman for the Patriots. He was a really nice guy. And I got to speak to Chad Muma, the linebacker from the Patriots. Cool. Seahawks wise, I got to speak to what's his name? The nose tackle. Jerome Reed. So I got to speak to Jerome Reed and kind of ask him a question about, you've been in the league 10 years. You never got to experience the last Super Bowl. What does it mean to finally, as a Seahawk, be able to have your dream moment? And he was great. I got to speak to Patrick O'Connell, who ended up playing on special teams for the Seahawks that day. I asked him about his Irish heritage because when you have a name like Patrick O'Connell, surely you do. But he actually said that both his granddads were adopted, so he hasn't been able to kind of trace it back that far. And I also got to speak to another Seahawks player that kind of it slips my mind, but that was surreal as well because I was standing next to Adam Schefter at one point as he was waiting to ask a question to Leonard Williams, and also Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, surprisingly short. Surprisingly short. They just are. Scott Hansen was there. He was pretty big. But a lot. There was a lot. I don't know if there's anything else. There's probably other stories that I just can't fucking remember.
No doubt there's an unbelievable amount of stories left to come out of you, Craig. Boys, any questions before we move on?
Well, no questions. Any comments? Hopefully the Giants are in it next year.
So actually that was a funny moment. We had Shane and Ben on the team. Now, Shane's a Patriots fan and Ben's a Seahawks fan. And obviously we're all doing content all week and they're really good friends. Like they've known each other for years and years. And like you could just tell that Ben went to a bar to watch it, whereas Shane was in the press box as part with us, sort of thing. And you could just tell that for Shane it was difficult afterwards. He was happy for Ben, but it was difficult to go to a Super Bowl and literally watch your team lose from the press box, whereas Ben was buzzing. So that was an interesting evening.
I can imagine.
I suppose the only other thing I haven't spoken about is CBS. We did a show with CBS on the Saturday morning, which nice. You look at and you're like, the boys, they've got the Levi Stadium in the background, and you can see them all with the mic. And the reality is that it was filmed on top of a car park nearby. And there was that's where all of and it wasn't just CBS in there. There was all the news outlets all had their own like little studio on top of a car park.
On top of a car park, because that's the best view of the stadium.
Yeah.
Love that. Make it make sense. Shane, any questions?
I've asked the one I was wondering about. Justin Pugh.
Yeah.
Getting his what was the story with that you said you were going to tell us? Or is that something? Yeah.
No, I could tell that on there. So yeah, I saw Justin, and obviously we've interviewed Justin twice before. We saw him in the locker room after the Patriots game, wasn't it, that we attended? So he was talking to a few lads, and he was like, "Sorry, lads, I've really got to go." And he turned and he looked at me and he looked inquisitively, and I kind of said, "Oh, it's Craig from Big Blue UK and Ireland," and I got a big old bear hug off the man and a high five. And he was like, "I need to go, but walk with me." And he was talking to me about the fact that he's actually doing some stuff in the background about that's very similar to ELF, the European League of Football. And that he, Christmas film, yeah, he's doing Elf 2 with Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell, yeah.
And he was just like he wanted to have a chat about it with the Irish NFL show lads, and he was just like, "Oh, have you got your phone there?" And I said, "Yeah." And he went, "Oh, here you go," and just put his number into my phone, and I was able to text him. I've had a conversation with him. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do anything at Radio Row, but keep your eyes peeled, because we'll be able to speak to him at some point about that, and hopefully have him back on here as well. So yeah, one of the more surreal moments. I'll be honest.
Aaron will be having a Cam Scatby moment.
Yeah. No, well, the having offensive lineman, a real offensive lineman expert, right? Was it Pugh that put out there the whole wiping your ass with the opposite hand, playing from left to right? So bit higher level analysis, next level analysis from a former first round offensive lineman, right?
Exactly that. I think my only question is, what is your ultimate favorite moment from the entire week? Like, if you had to choose one moment from the entire week, what is it?
I'll give you two answers, because, and this is going to sound odd, but you boys will understand this because of what happened, because of when we went to New York. My ultimate favorite moment was outside of Radio Row. It was in the evenings when you were reminiscing and you were looking back at it, and you were having drinks with friends and you were having a meal. You were kind of talking about. Actually, I've got three. I've just thought of something.
Nice.
So that's kind of my overall moment. If somebody turned around to me and said you could have been in that stadium and watched the game in the stadium, but you would have to trade in everything else, I would have said no. That's how much Radio Row and everything else meant to me. It was just the best experience of my life. One of just the best experiences. The other, God, I keep remembering things. Two more stories, and then I'll tell you.
You need to write a memoir.
I know.
This.
Two more stories, and then I'll tell you. First story: we're walking down. We've just been to an Irish pub. There's me, Brian, Kieran, Connor, and Kieran. I know it makes it really difficult. Kieran and Kieran. It's worse. It's horrible. Anyway, we're walking down the street, and I see that there's a starter pop up, and I go, and I'd had a few bevies, so I turned around and I went, "Yeah, Carl Banks is definitely over there," and I walked off. And they were like, "No, there's no way." And I walked around the corner and I saw him outside, and I went straight up to him and went, "Hey, Carl." And he was like, "Oh, how you doing, brother?" And then everyone else piled in and got a picture with him. And they were like, "How did you know that he was over there?" And I was like, "It's Starter.
His company.
It's Starter."
It's his company.
So that was one. The other one is Adam Rank. Yeah. I would be doing a disservice to my time at Radio Row if I didn't mention how much of a fucking legend Adam Rank is. All right. We saw him at opening night and I got introduced to him and we had a really good conversation. He's an Arsenal fan. So we had a good conversation about soccer and we had just a good laugh. We kept going to this Irish bar called Foley's and he was in there quite a lot. And again, we were just having conversations and back and forth. And then on the Thursday or the Friday, and one of the other nights he was going home, so a lot of the media personalities actually won't stay for the Super Bowl, they'll fly home and watch it at home because they enjoy it that way, but a lot more. Adam Rank comes up to me and he says, "I've got something for you." And he gave me a jumper. Now, it doesn't fit because I'm massive and it was a large, but it's a T-shirt that obviously his podcast is the Sick podcast with Adam Rank, and it says Sick, but the I is a Lombardi. And he said, "I'm giving this to you because you are my MVP of Radio Row." And
There we go.
that was like one of the best moments I've had there, was just because Adam Rank is, he works for the NFL. He's got his own podcast. He's a big deal. He does a lot of stuff. And it meant a lot just for him to say that. And I said to him, "You can't go. We've got to get a picture, almost like I've been drafted." So I like held the T-shirt up, and he was next to me, and we had a good laugh. He's just a really, really nice guy. But my favourite moment of everything inside Radio Row was meeting Jerry Rice. Just the night, that is the GOAT. He is a Hall of Famer. He is a player that just transcends NFL. Like, if you know a little bit about NFL and the famous players, you know who Jerry Rice is. And he was just so nice, just the loveliest man. And you just couldn't fault him. Is Florio as verbose as he is on PFT Live? Yeah. He is there. He is exactly the same. Right. I'll end it here. I've just remembered one other.
Come on.
I was trying to talk to, at the NBC media availability, I was trying to talk to Chris Sims, and I wanted to ask Chris Sims a question that I actually ended up asking Florio, which is around Matt Nagy being the Giants offensive coordinator. And I was just about to ask him a question, and he got dragged off to the red carpet bit, because there was a red carpet bit at the front where there were TV stations doing interviews. And I went there, and I stood there, and I was hoping I'd get a word with Chris there, and Chris got moved across to the side, and Chris Collinsworth appeared. And I was like, okay, I'll try and ask Chris Collinsworth a question. I didn't get to, because he kept getting ushered everywhere. But I got to stand there, and Chris Collinsworth is the same distance as I am to my monitor right now. So literally right there. And I got to listen to Chris Collinsworth on Denver News, I think it was, talk about the Malcolm Butler interception and how it was in the booth and all of that. And I think I've got a video of it, but the audio is not very great, very good on it. So I'll send it in the group, just so you guys can kind of try and listen to it. But just standing there, and Chris Collinsworth's there, and you're thinking to yourself, this is the guy who's going to be. Now, here's a guy who's going to be calling the Super Bowl this weekend, and you're listening to him talk about probably the most famous play in the last 20 years, maybe the Super Bowl.
One of them, yeah.
And you're just listening to him talking, and that was one of those kind of like, what is going on moments where I was just stood there like, this is.
What am I here? What am I doing?
Yeah, exactly. So I'll end it there. I'll end it with the college. I feel like I've gone on for half an hour, and my voice is hoarse as hell.
Props to you, man, because it sounds like an incredible experience, incredible week. And yeah, if the Giants get there next year, I think we're all going to be there, or try to be there.
yeah, absolutely.
Maybe. Try to be there. Just have to make a few phone calls and pull a few favors. But no, it sounds insane. And I'm glad you had a good week, and smashed it, mate. Because like I said, some of the Irish NFL show content that come out was incredible. So well done to you, man, and well done. So I say, well done. Props to the guys, and shout out to the guys. For all that hard work they put in across the week as well. So,
watch the Pat Leonard one. Watch the Troy Hawk one. That was very, very funny. We were all in hysterics over that. And try and find the live show with Ron Rivera, because that was also Ron Rivera and Dan Orlovsky. Those two were very good as well.
Nice.
Watch it all. Watch it all. There's loads of good shit in there.
Yeah, check it out. YouTube Irish NFL show. And get watching those videos. All right then, let's move on to wrap up the show. As the season is over, what better time to look at some of the latest mock drafts? Hey, Shane and Aaron. So, who are the Giants taking?
Yeah, so obviously. And the Super Bowl finishes, the first thing everyone does is release a mock draft, right? It's the start of the off-season. And when I was putting this slide together, it was quite interesting because it was obviously just before the draft, and it was unanimous. It was Malik Neighbours. Everyone was mocking us Malik Neighbours. Obviously, from 2 years ago, this slide, or the slide that I was, the template I stole this format from. And the thing I noticed about this one was there is no consensus about who the Giants are going to take. So Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft is Mansour Delane from LSU. Shane, any thoughts? Cornerback, top 5? What do you think?
No, thank you. No, I'm not a fan of cornerback at 5. I don't think. For me, for a team that's as shit as the New York Giants, just take BPA. And I don't think Mansour Delane at number 5 is BPA. I think there's at least 3 other players that are might not offer the positional value at number 5, but they are a much better player than what you would be getting with positional value. And that's going to be an interesting argument and debate for, not just fans to have, but the front office to have with themselves as well.
Yeah. And Matt Miller has wide receiver Carnell Tate from the Ohio State. Thoughts, Shane? Wide receiver?
Yeah. I do like that. I am a fan of getting a little bit like Tatey. I think he's a good wide receiver. He's my wide receiver 1 right now. Going to be honest, it's not going to change. He's locked in at number 1 for me. But again, I'm not sure I'm a fan of taking a wide receiver at 5 who's going to be a wide receiver 2. This isn't Malik Neighbours we're drafting. He's not the same kind of player as Malik Neighbours. And appreciate Malik's coming off his ACL injury. But when Malik's back and fully fit, Tate is going to be a complementary piece. Now, again, like I say, for a team that's been as poor as they have for the last few years and they've got the holes they have, can we afford to take a wide receiver 2 at number 5 overall? I'm not too sure that you can.
Yeah, so positional value wise, right? We're looking at the free agency market, right, for wide receivers, and if we're going to replace Wan'Dale Robinson with a guy, you are talking 20, 22 million, high teens to get anyone at wide receiver 2. So what you get, the one advantage of taking that wide receiver, yes, it's a luxury to have your wide receiver 2 as both your top 2 wide receivers as top 5 picks. But as a cap control, salary control that you're putting into the wide receiver position, it doesn't half help. So from that point of view, if we have a complete roster coming out of free agency, and we aren't forced into a need pick at 5, and we can't trade out of 5, I'm not opposed to from a cap point of view and that kind of financial point of view going, well, actually, Carnell Tate might be the right guy. But that's like, there's a lot of ifs there, right? We've talked the last few weeks. We've got right tackle, right guard, not under contract. We've got a problem at cornerback 2. We've got a problem at 3 tech next to Dex. We've got, linebacker is a struggle. So yeah. So next 2 guys gone the same way, but I have seen I've seen other wide receivers. He's the only wide receiver on the list. I have seen other wide receivers mocked to us, but Connor Rogers and Bucky Brooks have both gone Francis Maui Noah from Miami, the tackle at 5. Shane?
No, absolutely not. No, I mean to be. It's a no right now, but a lot's going to hinge on Jermaine Illuminor. If Jermaine Illuminor doesn't get re-signed, then as much as I might hate it, you have to start to say, are the front office having a bigger conversation about tackle at 5, irrespective of what fans want, irrespective of who's available on the board. But again, are you going for need rather than best player? I know there's a couple of tackles that are going to be up there. The Utah kid,
Spencer
Fano, he's going to be up in there for conversation at the minute. I've not looked at offensive tackle tape yet.
So
that's a shock, isn't it?
Maui Noah, I think, has the potential to be an all-pro guard. and then this is kind of like the Will Campbell something, and he may struggle at tackle. I think 33.5-inch arms is something that I was quoting. I like 34. Doesn't mean he can't be a tackle. But for me, this pick would be like this is the high floor pick, going offensive tackle that you might be able to play at guard. It's a position of need. It's a position of need.
I would have murdered it, Holty.
Yeah, and it's one of those that actually, if in the grand scheme of things, although it's not a sexy pick, again, positional value, we're looking at what we're paying tackles, and we're saying Jermaine Illuminor we've had great value out of. Now we're talking about balking at paying 18 million for our right tackle a year, or even 15 million at our right tackle a year. Again, that contract value, if we're talking purely positional value, and we're saying that actually we can't trade out of 5, these top 20 guys, they're all good starters. Actually, we're better off having a starter at a position of contract value, because you get that 5-year cap control, than you are going and getting a position that's maybe less positional. Linderbaum's a perfect example, who we've been linked with in free agency. The reason why he's a free agent this year is his 5th-year contract is the tackle rate for an offensive lineman, and he's far too expensive for a centre to be given a 5th-year option. So you've kind of wasted a first-round guy on a low positional value, if you take a guy in that kind of thing. Now, if that guy's a blue chipper and he's a top 5 at his position in the league, kind of changes the maths a little bit. But that's one of the reasons why you might go for a wide receiver and a tackle, even though they might not be the biggest need.
The last time you took a tackle in the first round?
Yeah, well, Evan Neal.
Look and look who went the pick after Evan Neal.
Yeah.
Who's just won himself a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah.
Shane,
No,
Shane, are you still not a fan of Charles Cross?
No, still not a fan. Look, this that year was I really wanted us to draft Abraham Lucas. He was the best pure right tackle in that draft class, and we didn't take him, and he ended up getting to Seattle, and he's pretty solid for them now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, and then Todd McShay, who's now exclusive to Netflix for his video show, so you need a VPN to see him in the UK, and Dane Brugler, both have gone Caleb Downs of the Ohio State safety. Shane, safety, top 5?
I love it. I know it's not positional value, but this is the one on the list where I say blue chip prospect. This is one of the 3 players who, for me, I'm like, if they're there at 5, no problems with it. I get there's no positional value. I understand it. But when you think what the Ravens did and John Harbaugh did when they drafted Carl Hamilton a few years ago, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, they drafted Malachi Starks. I think it was the safety out of Georgia. I think they drafted him in the 1st round as well. There's a reason why a lot of people are saying to change a culture, Caleb Downs is that player. He is your Ed Reed kind of player. He's someone who's going to come in, he's going to hold people accountable. There's going to be some teething problems at safety. We paid Javon Holland last year. We drafted Tyler Nubin the year before. I don't think it's unfair to say they're not working it the way we wanted them to. But for me, if you're picking in the top 5, this is probably the blue chip prospect who is going to go on to have a 10, 14, 16-year career. He's going to be all pro, which means fuck all, but Pro Bowl, sorry. But he will go on to be all pro as well. So for me, get no positional value, but BPA is up there.
Yeah, and I think the more that I've watched of Caleb Downs, I think you are getting a player that is one of the 2 or 3 blue chip talents in this draft. Love might be the other other one, again, at a non-hot positional value. You know, running backs in the top 5, second overall, always work out, right? So I don't think we'll be going running back, but safety, and again, with a defense that is, I think our defense outside of Carter and Burns and Dex, I'm not sure there's anybody on our defense that you could say could be an all-pro. The rest of the guys, good starters. Some of them, Bobby's a good starter. Adebo looks like a good starter. I'm not sure though there's anybody else on our defense that you go, he walks into any team in the league that are cutting their arm off to get him. And I think Caleb Downs could be that level of player. He's not just a box safety. He's a chess piece, but not like Isaiah Simmons was a chess piece where you didn't really fit anywhere. This is a guy that could be the starter at nickel corner. He could be the starter at free safety. He could be the starter in a linebacker kind of box safety kind of role. His vision is his play recognition. He's a smart footballer. You can tell that he understands football, and that's why I think he's a guy that could go in that range. I think what will affect this the most is, and part of the reason there's such a broad range of mock drafts. Obviously, free agency's got to come out, and that kind of helps you narrow down your team needs. But there is no consensus, and people keep saying that this is a poor draft. This is a draft that lacks a lot of blue chippers, but it's not a draft that doesn't lack good quality starters. There's starters into the 50s comfortably, like walk-in day one starters. There's not many all pros in this draft, but the problem for the Giants is we only have 2 picks in that top 100. And I think we need more players in that top 100. So obviously the trade down from 5 would be great. If somebody wants to come and get the second quarterback in the draft and 5 they feel like's the time to come up and pull the trigger. Obviously we didn't do the same last year. It's that kind of really challenging place. So it's going to be an interesting one. Obviously, we've got the combine coming up. Free agency doesn't start for another 4 weeks, so there's things to happen. There'll be some guys re-signed. There'll be some tags. There's some trade candidates. Even today, I heard the possibility of Pittman Jr. being traded by the Colts because they want to prioritize Alec Pierce as a re-sign, and Pittman Jr. is on the last year of his deal. So there's a potential to trade for someone like that on a similar sort of money that we would give after. You'd make sure you trade after his roster bonus is paid for by the Colts, and you'd get him for about $18 million for the year, and then have the option to extend him. And he's, I think, 29 or something like that, 30, something like that. So he's far from past it. So you could go and trade, but do we have the cap at what are we trading? 4th rounder? We don't have a 3rd rounder. Do we do a swap with Kayvon Thibodeau for Pittman Jr.? There's lots still to play out. What I have seen is at key positions, it's not considered a strong draft class for all pros. It's not considered a strong free agency class for all pros. So I think the trade market's going to be really busy this offseason. So don't be surprised for the moves like the Brian Burns move. And there have been lots of trades happening around the league New Year time at the beginning of March. So we'll see what happens. And I think we'll probably have a deeper dive next week into the free agency targets, and maybe we'll even run a stick to the model and show some of these scenarios, and show the decisions that our illustrious GM that Shane will never say a bad bad word about. Sorry, this one. Shane will never say a bad word about our GM anymore, but we might give him some advice. Shane, we'll show him the way, show him the light to fixing the franchise.
How hard can it be?
Yeah,
Famous last words. Famous last words.
Well, no, famous
But no,
last
I mean-
words is not any worse.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, that's very true. You sure about that? But yeah, I mean, yeah, interesting that there's no sort of real general consensus across 6 mock drafts there. I think it's. I mean, I know it's real early days. We are sort of middle of February now, but it's going to be an interesting couple of months with I said with free agency, with the combine, with the draft coming as well, pro days, everything like that. So we've got so much to look forward to, and yeah, we'll start to really sort of narrow down who we're looking at in with the 5th overall pick. And like you said, Shane, I think it unless there is a player there that you think like could make a real significant difference, we've got to go for the best player available at 5. And you know, we never know. By the time we get there, we might be screaming out something different, but we shall see what happens in the near future. But unfortunately, that is all we have time for this evening. But we'll be back next week, I believe, next Wednesday. We will double check that and we'll let you know when we'll post out on our socials to let you know when we're going live. But as far as I'm aware, it's next Wednesday to bring you. Yeah, we're going to go and do a bit of a deep dive and look at some free agents and maybe put out a little bit of a wish list about who we want to bring in during free agency. So we look forward to that one next week. But is there anything else to add before we go, guys?
So obviously we start to ramp up now towards free agency. And in case people haven't seen, the NFL combine invitations have been sent out now and it's been announced who's attending. And with that begins the work on the draft Bible, which has started very loosely last week. It started to ramp up a little bit today with players starting to get added, etc. So that'll kind of be one to watch as we get closer to the draft.
Yes, it's weird, isn't it? The Super Bowl was 4 days ago or whatever, and it just rolls on. It just goes again. Like there's never any downtime. I know we try and take a little bit off here and there, normally in the off season, but the NFL doesn't sleep. The only time it really tends to sleep is kind of that June period after the initial mini camps, etc. So
after OTAs, before training camp, yeah,
and that little bit. But no, it was good getting on. It was good having a chat, and I hope people enjoyed the little stories. Obviously, anyone who's got any other questions, feel free to reach out on X via the podcast page or to me directly if you have my X page. I think it's still in our description, or should be around there. I'm sure you can find it on there. So yeah, and then obviously next week is my last episode as well, I believe, for at least a while. So we'll look forward to that in a way as well.
Yeah, and if you know, if it we weren't wishing days away enough, it's only 73 days until the NFL draft, and we'll have our latest rookies. We'll be buying our jerseys, and getting all excited about the prospect of the Giants being fixed by the new regime in the building. So I know me and Shane have been sending prospects to each other going, have you seen this guy? And there's guys that are day 3 picks that are already on our My Guys boards.
Your little private chat of prospects, eh?
I think we might have an all-time record for the amount of My Guys.
This is a My Guys draft, definitely. I think this is a sort of, like you said, that there's no consensus on the first round mock. The only pick that's locked in is Mendoza at 1. Everything else, every mock is different after number 1, and that will continue right through the 7 rounds. And you'll see guys you go, well, I thought that guy wasn't going until day 3, and he'll go at the end of the 2nd. And it's like it's a get your guys draft. If you like a guy, Don't expect him to be there on the next round. Just take him when you're ready to take him. And I think that my guys is the way to go this draft. Get your football players.
Yeah, I can agree more. I think it's going to be an interesting few days at the end of April, that's for sure. But 73 days is mad. That's going to go so quick. And yeah, as you said, Craig, we go again. The season's done. 2025 is in the books, in the past, and we go again and look forward to 2026. So, like I said, loads to look forward to over the coming few months before we really sort of get into, like you said, the doldrums of the off season. And it's just going to be really exciting, and there's lots for us to look forward to here. Thank you to everyone getting involved that we've been watching for your comments. We really do appreciate the love as usual, and my thanks as ever goes to Shane, to Craig, and to Aaron for joining me. We are signing off. Until next time, let's go Giants.